All right, all right, all right, man. Want to talk about the 19? Dang it. This was a turning point, man, for many of us. For many of us who are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, probably cats who are involved within the dealing, distribution of drugs and things like that. But really speaking about how this substance or this narcotic ravage the communities that we come from. But over the weekend, man, I started having this conversation relating to the crack area. So in this time period in my life, because my kids go about this crazy exploration or discovery of who I am, where I come from. They ask many questions about the hood. This weekend, they come back from LA. They spend 3 weeks out there in LA and they come back. The one highlight that they tell me about is we were over where in LA, where you're from, the hood. We were in the hood, and they were just speaking about things that capture them as far as what they see, as far as extreme poverty, certain things that you see, whether it's seeing prostitutes, drug addicts out on the streets, the homeless, what they do see here, but also hearing the stories of where I come from, my life stories. They tune in. Sometimes they're around when I'm on here telling stories or this and that, and about why I don't really take them around where I come from and shit, just from what happens over there. But the 80s was a time across this country, really sweeping across this country, and really from this punk in the top left, as you look at the screen, this Ronald Reagan, his little slut, Nancy Reagan, who through them comes this shit that ravaged the fuck up out of this country, man. And it was crazy. What made me really get on this topic is, so I'm going through these, like, walk into, because they ask me a lot of these questions, and especially with music and stuff, and start pulling on like documentaries. So I have them listening to Gil Scott-Heron over the weekend. So just a little bit, because Gil Scott-Heron can be a little bit over the head of a kid. So it's just a matter of pausing it, because I think Gil Scott-Heron is very critical to the mindsets of not just even young Black kids, but young kids who really want to know the true history and the true changes and attacks to to pinning people and to locking them into a system that keeps them down at the bottom. It is all targeted in a lot of these situations. It goes over the minds of a lot of these people head who are just like, pick yourself up, and they overlook this. Some people make shit bad for themselves, so never going to take that away as well. Sometimes it ain't the system that is causing people to stay in a rut and shit, but a lot of times it is certain things that people going through and in the system. So once again, my kids go through with these questions and they explore who I am, where I come from, and I'm open, so I don't hide shit from them. Think it's important for them to know these things, is they want to know where they come from, what makes me as they're being their father, the way I am, the way I react to things, and just an overall understanding, and an overall understanding of life as they see it, and wondering why things look this way here but look so beautiful here. Why do these people have privilege and these struggle to make it here? So I thought it's always critical to kind of open that and looking at that. So going into this kind of this journey into whether it's music, the history of things socially, just the way things are affected. And they begin to learn things about assassinations, civil rights, and all that shit. So listen to little Gil Scott-Heron, a lot of shit he kicked. So it's just boom, we pause through here, break down everything he's talking about. Gil Scott-Heron's deep, and it opened to where it intrigued them a little bit. But once again, like I say, you can't let them listen, because it's about an hour and 25-minute documentary, and it could be a little too heavy on young kids. So I pause it, give them about good 20 minutes of it, break down what they heard from Gil Scott-Heron. And also he goes into his life and he speak on that. But then I go over to this Nas documentary about Illmatic. And then Illmatic one is really what explored, and it's showing about what changed within his life as he's a young kid who drops out in the 8th grade. And he was speaking about when the father spoke about seeing these New York school systems and about how these schools lack nurturing. There was no true nurturing for these kids. And it affected his father coming from out of the South, And now being in New York or in Queens, raising his kids, and when he say he taking his kids to check them into school, he realized how these schools just really like nurturing. They want to know what do you mean by nurturing. They're trying to explore that, and going into that, it's just being about what nurturing means versus what he received in the South, which is crazy to hear him say that, because the South, we know, is deeply and openly racially segregated and shit. But the father to point that out here in these urban settings where many people leave the rural South to find better opportunities and shit for their family and shit and stuff. But when going into these institutional settings, things just don't stack up as fair, and many people slip through the cracks. And you had to where Nas is just starting to look at school like a joke. Plus, New York overcrowded. When you look at New York school systems and shit, their school systems have high ass population numbers. I think when you look at the population for like the top 10 schools, and as far as sizes of attendees, New York got like 8 of them motherfuckers or something like that. Very overcrowded. So you ain't gonna get too much one-on-one type experiences with educating. It'd be like high schools with 8,000, 6,000 people in the shit. So Nas and them speak about dropping out, but then he goes into this 80 time period. And when they showed this, he was speaking about crack and how it changed shit. And also let my kids know that's why I come. My biological mother was a crack addict, because they met her. But that ain't my mom. When they met who I call my mom, they were young infant babies, newborns. So they really don't remember her, but they do get to see and meet my biological mother. And I tell them, like, when she was having kids and at points in life, she became a victim to this epidemic of the 80s. She became addicted to crack and shit. She was horrible. And they was like, they're tripping because how they see her now was like, I'll never believe that type of shit. But it was like, that was a thing that affected a lot of where I come from. It was a lot to where young kids were being raised by grandparents, or some people having to be raised by drug addicted parents and things like that. So you begin to see that and what these drugs cause. And when they show Ronald Reagan, I said, this is the motherfucker that ravaged this fucking country. He ruined this fucking importing of this fucking drug into this country and into our communities, ravaged this motherfucker, destroyed everything. To where you had fucking mothers and fathers who would just sell off shit, kids not having anything just because of the addiction of this drug, the negligence of parents, to where kids have to go off to try to figure things off on their own if they're of a certain age and shit. It's just like, this is just something that just created such a deplorable fucking condition within this country. Like I say, from that 80s time period, and especially as an LA kid, because all right, so I'm gonna keep going through that shit of the signal going out every 15 minutes or so, but it comes right back. But back into this exploration into a lot of this shit is the teaching, and especially through the music, because a lot of music I listen to, it speaks about this time period. Going into some of these movies, because I'm gonna start showing them hood movies because they want to see it and look at it, because some of these movies give off great depictions of what it was like dealing with that stuff. Some of them add a little bit of no, I won't even say some of them add fluff to a lot of shit, like an over exaggeration into a lot of the violence, graphical violence, because a lot of it's real depiction of what they sing. Because like I say, what I tell them all the time, what changed me is as a kid watching my neighbor get killed. When they start having a lot of, a high rise in fucking gun violence throughout our fucking communities, and high powered weapons being used on shit. But also going into some of these revolutionary, I got this shit set up so perfect for how I want them to learn this shit and teach them. And I'm gonna teach it through a mix of music, do some of the documentaries, introducing them to some of the revolutionaries, and also some of the politicians, and really have to explore into this time period that really affected us with this Reagan administration and the Iran-Contra scandal. Because I think I put a video on it was a great documentary I come across, where this guy broke this shit down so fucking elegantly, man, and so detailed in his structuring of this fucking time period with the Iran-Contra scandal, and about how, but he didn't go too much into how they pushed the drugs in there. There's other shit I can show them, but let them know how they led this war of fucking illegal trading and profiting of weapons and shit, to funding the fucking guerrilla war, to keep socialism up out of a country and shit, to supply rebel forces or whoever to overthrow a government. And then now when weapons get blocked, they can no longer do that. Start bringing drugs in through these fucking through Contras and shit, bringing it in through here. And this is where Rick Ross ties into that shit. And just gonna run these stories because they have an intrigue, and then we'll go explore more through the areas and what has really like ravaged this shit. Because like I say, as a young kid, before this real turning point in like 86 or some shit, I'm like a 5-year-old kid, but my eyes are wide open. I'm watching shit. I'm observing everything. I'm soaking shit in. And I'm at the heart of a lot of this shit. I'm at the heart of the shit. Plus, I'm also another kid. I'm too young to know what the effects of being taken from biological mom, being put with a Mexican family at one point. I probably was the only fucking kid that went in the foster system that lived with fucking Mexican foster parents for a moment, and then leave them and go with who would become my mom and dad. And then also my brother, my biological brother, them getting my biological brother and all that shit. But it's just like I said, I observed a lot of shit. So it's like my window to what was happening from the perspective of a kid, but also being around the people who were foot first into a lot of this shit, who didn't realize what was happening around them. They just see the allure of what this drug can change for them. There's no opportunities out here. Everything's shut off for them. And they hit in the streets. Streets turn violent as they fucking scavenge for control of this shit. And it's just ill with the way in which this shit was done through systematic motherfucking approaches to fucking, we gonna hit our fucking objective, which is to funding these people up here to win this war that we want. We want these proxy wars won because we want these ideologies that we value to fucking dominate the world versus the spread of communism and all this other shit that will target citizens of this country and shit. That's why you gotta watch. See this shit going on with Republicans right now is shit. Cool Breeze in the bill. Let me read your comment. It says good vibes. And Jaquan in the bill says salute my brother. Salute. Velocity Cuss says I blame Al. Says Freeway Ricky and the real Noriega. Man, damn, I remember that shit with Noriega and shit. That's why I want to read more on Noriega. I always remember when they went in about the arrest of Noriega. And I think that was them covering up some shit because it was the foulest shit that came out of that Contra scandal shit. And how nothing really happened to a lot of people involved. These people start getting fucking immunity and bullshit, and Reagan acting like he didn't know what the fuck was going on. That's really what affected Bush as well, not just that Iraq war. That Contra shit stood over him. It affected Reagan's presidency as well once that shit leaked out. And then Tyrese in the building, what's up, bro? And the Cool Breeze says revolution will not be televised, man. That motherfucking Gil Scott, man, is so powerful, man. And I got that shit playing, man, while the kids in here, they on their computers, make them put the computers down and listen in to what he's speaking, man. Like he rapping out some real revolutionary, poetic, historical shit. Like he said, he's a bluesologist and shit. He studies the science of not just blues as the music, but the blues of society and shit. And seeing the ills of the society and about, you know, the hangups that you see in a lot with Black society. Ain't that Blacks don't try hard. We work harder than anyone. But when you're dealing with political people, and it's why elections and politics are so fucking important, that you see these approaches that some of these covert, scandalous ass people go about taking. And you know it's some scandalous shit. Bush comes from out the CIA. I think he headed the CIA. So he knows all this covert operation shit. Reagan knows about that shit. His close attachments is with the FBI and all that shit. Is being a scumbag piece of shit out of SAG and shit. It's a lot that goes into it. And like I said, I think I'm the perfect teacher. And I'm glad that my kids are starting to try to explore that shit and asking questions. And not just thinking that it's the hood. We were in the hood. And oh my God, it's beyond that. And Cool Breeze says my graduating class in South Carolina had about 30 Black students. It says autobiography of X, Roots, etc. Says were banned books. Wow. Since I had to go to the Black side of town, whites have limited themselves inside of society. But their parents try to. You have, let me let the signal come back. But you have some whites that have tried to branch away from that shit. From they're looking at the segregationist type mindset. Not all white fans are like that, but you had a lot of them that did this shit. The ones who will white flight their way up out of shit when people who don't look like them are moving in, and they already have these prejudged falsehoods of people and painting people in such negative lights. Like, they limit the fuck out of themselves, and then they wonder why their kids are so screwed up and fucked up. And then Cool Breeze says, but it was a brand new school, says, with great facilities, and I got a good education, says, just had to supplement it at home, says, with Black history. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing with those schools, they do the resources that you see in them, and even with the schools we come from, because even like in what people term as the hoods, before Blacks start moving into motherfuckers, there was all type of resources in these schools. But mysteriously, things begin to change as the complexion of shit begins to change. You see that throughout this fucking country. And then people act like, oh, well, the rise in this cost and the right, no, that's some old bullshit. And you start looking at people who are making pen to paper decisions and shit. And you begin to look deeply into these motherfuckers and you see where it's going. But I love the way that the direction of this world is changing. That's why it doesn't make sense for people to say, oh, we need to stick to ours and this and that. No, the world is melting. And it's the dress bigot shit in this country. And it just bugs me when I see Black folks turn to want to be on the reverse side of acting counter to what they see with bigots rather than addressing bigots. Niggas get on coward shit. And all that shit does is just to lead into a standstill of nothing progressing with shit. Cool Breeze says, I was able to grow up without gangs, without gangs and violence. Says, for the most part, it's sad that kids don't get that today. It depends on the environment they come from. Like, where we come from, we were so desensitized to that shit. My kids don't know nothing about that shit. That's why when they were out there in LA, they was like tripping, like they finally went to the hood, and they looking at it as like, wow, this is where you come from, and blah blah blah. It was just like an intriguing world. It's a maybe cultural shock to them to be out there and shit. But it was like when we were growing up, like, we became desensitized to that shit. A motherfucker, we become normal. We become, I wouldn't say normal, like we become so fucking adapted to death. Like, we so much around people that were dying before they reached their 20s and shit. And after a while, like after I said, the one thing fucked me up is when I watched my neighbor get killed. That shit fucked me up. But then it was just so much of that shit happening every fucking month, every fucking year. And then you going out to walking, somebody got shot. We all walking around there, looking beyond the yellow tape, seeing people dead on the ground, people shot and fucked up, to where it just becomes nothing to you. It becomes like, this the environment you live in, like damn, this is what it is and shit. Then as we begin to get older, like a lot of homies like, man, the way we grew up wasn't nothing normal about that shit. And a lot of motherfuckers where I grew up, they guarantee they got PTSD. I think I'll be having that shit sometime, but I think I'll be more on knowing that. I wouldn't even say PTSD. I think my shit is just more on keeping my senses up, because I used to get mad with some of the homies that act like, man, you act like we on a Beverly Hills street or some shit, and being like dark as fuck late at night, then you just hang out and ain't got shit on you. Like, man, this shit ain't cool. Like, man, you don't need to get over here off to the side of some shit, or you're gonna have to go in the crib or in the backyard. Otherwise, you're gonna be a victim to some shit, or you gotta always watch your back. Even when I went out there the last time for the homie funeral, because at the COVID popped off, I ain't even been back to LA since COVID and shit. But it was just like, when it going on, I went on the block and shit, and I don't take my kids, because I'm like, I got little babies, they can't come over there with me, because out there on my block, and because of the shit going on, because it's different hoods and people from other hoods coming through people neighborhoods, lurking to catch someone slipping to try to lay some shit down, because you don't know what didn't happen at school, because a lot of this shit kick off with these kids in these high schools and shit, and especially in this internet age, shit being said over the internet, people seeing each other at the mall or walking down the street, jumping them, people on the bus getting beat up, and it kick off shit. Now you get people out here cruising around shit, trying to catch someone slipping. Motherfuckers be lurking like a motherfucker. So it's like, I don't want my babies around that shit. And one of the older homies who I grew up around, he ended up recovering from being shot up. Somebody pull it, and they did him so scandalous. This how accustomed he gets to being shot. This dude, in total total number of times he'd been shot fucking about 15, 16 fucking times, like hit with bullets, and three or four different scenarios where every time he gets shot multiple times. But when I see him, he out there, and I walk up the street, and I'm like, damn, what's up, baby? Like, woo. He looked normal and shit. And then fucking when he tell me like, nah, man, I'm here recovering, man. My fucking his thigh bone got split where they shoot him, and the way they did this shit was it's around prime time. These fools show up in a fucking like limo that a kid come in to get, pick up their date for the limo. They come in on it. That's how slick they be doing. Pull up in some shit like that. Pass by him, pull in the driveway, back up. He don't think nothing. No, he think it's somebody picking somebody up for the prom and shit, because around prime time. Person get out the car, walk right up on him, start blasting his ass. They didn't even try to stand over him. I don't know, they ran out bullets or the gun jam, but he like when they start getting off on him, he get hit. He said he go to run because the bullet shattered or broke his fucking thigh bone. He immediately collapsed. Person walked up, stood over him, about to dome him, but he been shot so many fucking times. But it's just like, so you deal with where you watch a young kid walking through your area, you don't know, you ain't never seen this kid. This is a kid being sent over there from wherever the fuck he come from to try to catch somebody slipping. You've seen that shit. It's a lot of ill shit, but this is all behind the residual effects of a lot of that 1980s shit. The minds have been so fucked up and destructed, man. And it's crazy. And then let me continue to read. But yeah, it's cold when you deal with kids. But like I say, with me and my friends and all of it and other kids around this country living in these, environments where you desensitize to shit, it becomes nothing. And then you like shit. Then you really get on some paranoid shit, and you need to get a gun and shit. You need to carry some shit. Like shit. They would have, when I went to elementary school, I remember kids, I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade when some kids at Woodcrest Elementary get shot. I think they were 6th graders, because this is before, because when I was in elementary school still went to the 6th grade and shit before they changed it, because middle school used to be 7th and elementary school junior high was 7th and 8th grade or some shit like that. But they changed it when I was school to where when I was in elementary school, we used to go all the way to 6th grade. When I get to like the 3rd or 4th grade, they changed it to where elementary just went from kindergarten to 5th grade, and then junior high start being 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then you went to high school in them later. So I was doing all that shit, but somebody came on the playground and shot some 6th grade. I think one of them got killed, or they all might have got shot up. But for some reason, because I was a kid, I can't find the stories to follow up, because I don't know why a lot of fucking information you try to get through the LA Times, you can't find that shit or records. But there were some kids that got shot on Woodcrest back then. But that's how shit was going. And then you start seeing that crack shit. Like the homies' parents fucked up. Homies, a lot of grandparents, a lot of us being raised by older ass people. A lot of elder parents. And I used to always wonder, because my mom, when it was way older and shit, like I said, my mom born in 1926, pops in 1919. So I'm like, everybody, I think most kids got moms and dads. So I always call moms, but my friends see them, they like looking at how old, like, dang, how old was your mom when she had you type shit. It'd be like shit like that. But it's like, no, that's my mom. And then you be having people want to ask the nosy ass questions like, man, I ain't answering that shit. Fuck you. And then Kubrick says, I was able to, oh yeah, I read that one. Says sad that kids don't get that today. Kubrick says New Jack City, Scarface, Menace, Boys in the Hood. Says were the movies of the time. Yeah, I'm showing my kids all that shit, but I'm definitely want to show them more the documentaries, like Bastards of the Parties was a dope one. There's other like Dead Homies and shit, or like great little documentaries of showing that shit. But Bastards of the Parties get more towards where you get the 1960s to where they go into the watch rides. You start getting the transition of Los Angeles with the with the mass migration of blacks coming in here during the fucking late 50s, early 60s and shit. And plus, like I said, I always been around older black folks, always, since I'm younger than my kids' age right now. When I'm like, start going in the front yard, because before, when I'm a young kid, moms didn't want to let us out the backyard and shit. And I think I just start, you start testing the limits. I kind of start just sneaking out the back gate, walking towards the end of the driveway. And then I'll run back in the backyard for mom say something. Then I'll just start sneaking out, like walking towards the front. And then to see if she's gonna say something. Then I see the old cats in the neighborhood. They be in the driveway working on a car. And it's risky shit for a kid to do that. But my neighborhood is a tight-knit neighborhood. Everybody knew who was and shit. And I see them old cats go down there and they be on their car. And I just sit there. They want to say, get your little young ass out of here. I be quiet, sit there, listen. They all around the car with one of the cats, a mechanic. I sit over the hood looking like I'm knowing what, I don't know what the fuck is what, but I'm listening to their stories, just listening to this shit and soaking this shit up. All this shit is, and this shit's stored in my brain. Like even when I start meeting up with the homies who later become my friends, they start getting older. Because some of my friends, I see them through their door. They weren't able to come out like that, this and that. I only start coming out because I was sneaking. But this is an age where you got homies that you see across the street. It'd be like a year or two before you can go over there and play with them, because there wasn't no going across the street. Unless then you start getting to where you see the kids looking across the street. We all looking at each other all sad, want to go over there and play or some shit. Then you actually can go street. They watch you go across the street. You stay the fuck over there. Or some adult help you if you ready to go back home type shit. But before that, it was just me going 2 houses over where all the old cats used to hang over, one of the mechanic cats named Lawrence in my neighborhood. And I just listen to their stories and soak all this old ass shit up. And they speak on race, speak on how shit changed, speak on the whites that used to live in the neighborhood, then how all the whites moved out. And it just made all their stories was on shit of pride. That's why I don't talk weak shit as a black person. I took pride from these old black cats in the neighborhood. And then when I start hanging with the friends, them old cats out, I wouldn't even hang around my friends. I go watch these older cats. So I end up watching my neighbor get killed when I should have been down there playing with friends. But I always was a kid that soaked up shit, just observing shit, listening shit, keeping my ears open. But that's why you got to watch what you present in front of children, because them motherfuckers are always listening, even when you think they ain't. Like, my brother Real Rap in the building. Salute, bro. My brother Lost Art of Boxing. Q the guy in the building. What's good, bro? Trey says in the building, says, what's good? What's up, bro? And then Q the guy says, what's up, the Real Rap? Luke K. My Essence says, the 1980s says influx of drugs has really messed up the community. Says we could have took over power, man. That 1980s really fucked a lot of shit up, man. Because shit was so fucking beautiful before you start approaching. There's even with the spread of a lot of gang shit that you hear with Tookie and Raymond and all that, but there still was just a lot of joy within the community. It wasn't a lot of the over aggression and division like that, even though it was there. And that's some shit that should have been checked. But once them drugs came in, and because there's lack of opportunity for cats, the flooding in of weapons and shit, no longer any more control in the communities. And that's kind of really what they wanted to be anyway. And these guns went into young ass kids, young teenagers' fucking hands. And now you're giving young teens power. You're starting to get to where a lot of the fathers are alcohol abusers, transitioning to drug addictions and shit to wash away their fucking pains. The single mothers begin to adapt to it as life gets hard. And they get the smoke out. And I'll be, like I said, I was observing, but I see, like, when I was going to Woodcrest Elementary and shit, which is in the Hoovers, like deep in the Hoovers, in the 107 Hoovers, but they was pushing a lot of dope over there too. There was a lot of dope going over in the Hoovers, in between Buttlong up to motherfucking Vermont and all that shit. You begin to see all that shit spread through. But one thing I used to observe was, like, my mom always kept herself nice, because mom is in them own shit. Like I said, my life been blessed. Mom's in them always own shit. Like I say, moms didn't go to work. Mom's in them own shit. Mom's is always at home and shit. I didn't know about parents went off to work like that shit, because they was always home and shit. But then they But when we go to school, I see the homies, the parents walk them up to the gate and all that shit. And you look at the homies' moms, because some of the homies' moms and homegirls' moms were strung the fuck out. Like how you see on New Jack City shit, the homies' parents looking like that and shit. And then they dads looking like bums, like how you see the homeless people, seeing those as their parents, but their parents, had their kids, kept them around. Some of them, the grandparents were being dumped off with kids. Then you had the kids who parents may fucking, then you get the kids who parents may have fucking got, the house got raided, dad done fucking been sent off to prison and shit for fucking drug dealing. A lot of parents gang bang. It was like that shit was a cold transition. It was a transition that really fucked away this fucking community, like drastically, like overnight type shit. And like I say, I'm speaking from a child's perspective, but I also get the perspective of cats that were heavy in the dope dealing and shit. But that's also when I used to be able to hang around the old cats and listen to them. But then you get this, it's almost like I go into like tears of this shit and growing up over there. Then I go around the gangster cats and they be over there congregating and shit, probably talking street related shit. And they be like, man, get your little ass from out of here, Reggie. And I'll be, I think they playing like, because they always used to be trying to teach us how to fight and shit and play fighting and shit. So I'll tell you some play fighting shit. Shut up, fool. Woo. And then trying to run off, an old person chasing you and shit. You think it's funny. The homie uncle didn't play that shit. He'd be like make it known, like, when we telling you get like, and I get it. It's like, man, you get up out of here because ain't no little kid shit they over there talking about. Kids listen to everything. The homie uncle catch me, man. I mean, that nigga body slam my head on the concrete. And Hulk Hogan body slam me on the concrete. Like, get the fuck up out of here, like we told you. To me, it probably could have been a soft slam, but as a kid and this older motherfucker picking me up and slam me on the concrete, don't care if my head hit that shit or nothing. But his point is get that message across, like, get the fuck out of here. And even when we'll go to shit and they tell us to go in the house, from that shit, it'd be like, you get the point of when they say, get out of here, go get out of here, go in the house, like some shit about to go down. It never fails. Anytime I remember them early back in the days saying y'all got to go in the house, like some shit about to kick off, some shit kick off. Like, so I always understood that shit. And I also push that with my kids. When I say it's time to go or get over here type shit, peep, I'm observing something, need you close, woo, woo, woo. That's how we moving. Kenny Porter's right hand in the building, salute, bro. And then Cool Breeze says drugs and gangs says hadn't permeated my area, says in a large extent yet. Says I only knew about that life through movies and music. Says we all didn't grow up in big cities or hoods, but doesn't make us less black. No, absolutely. And I hate when people try to lessen a person's blackness because they didn't grow up in a struggle. Like, a person shouldn't have to go in a struggle. But sometimes what you get from people who grow up in more privileged areas is that you do get a lot of sellout bullshit from them. They kind of had that little sellout shit in them, and most of them don't. I don't put that on all of them, but a lot of them you get to being on some Carlton Banks ass shit. And then Lost Art of Boxing says you need to do a live, says about the Great Migration and the Harlem Renaissance. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's some other shit I'm teaching my kids too, because we go through I be taking through these explanations in the music and shit, and it'd be a trip because as babies, I used to play jazz music around them all the time. And then I just like, and it's been, they for like the last 3 years or some shit. My son be on this shit, like, let me put on some jazz and shit. And he'll play jazz and just let that shit take him to sleep type shit. So I'm like, damn. But then I do go into, because I try to show them a lot of this old shit. I put pride of blackness in them, the creation, the imagination of blackness. Like, man, we're so inventive and so creative. Like, and I show that shit of where we come from, because it goes beyond just this slave shit. And that's what I try to break them beyond. It ain't just that blacks have been slaves. And even during the slavery shit of everything, I show them the fights that blacks have put up. We don't talk about people just whipping you. Yeah, people whip you, but there was also blacks who whipped their motherfucking ass. And then we go into the Civil War shit, because I don't expect the schools to teach everything. And then my kids even understand that when getting the stories of Columbus, and even with Thanksgiving and all this shit. And I remember daughter saying, like, I gotta understand that. And All right, give me a second to come back. There we go. But there's also stories of us always being fighting. That's why we still exist today. Through everything we come from, we still exist today. Everything we've been faced with, everything motherfuckers have thrown at us, we still exist to fucking day. But yeah, for that migration shit, yeah, I'm teaching everything to them because I think it's important. Not to cry because, like with the Florida shit, they want to teach the school that. No, I don't think parents shouldn't even have to cry about that. Teach this shit. I don't teach all that we were kings and this and that shit. That shit is pointless. I don't know where people come off teaching that shit. It's about what are you today? And that's my thing. To teach this history where you come from, you become a scholar. You ain't living by my legacy, and your existence is yours. Mine's to help push you, make you confident, make you comfortable in your existence, and comfortable and appreciative of who you are around other people, not to feel lesser around any group of people. But I'm definitely teaching all that shit, and I'll be already teaching them that shit and showing them, or hear music played. Like I play shit. This is the type of shit we be on. Even this is how I know this shit getting through. Because even when you riding in the car, my son would be like, I want to listen to the news. So we turn to NPR. He'd be wanting to listen to this shit. And we let that shit play. We listen to certain things. Or if it's an older musician, who is this person? Can you pick up on the sound and just teaching that? And then also showing the videos. I was trying to show him Prince, but the shit with Prince is just a little bit too goddamn fruity. I had to turn that shit. Prince is looking like, my kids notice that shit. Prince just looked way too gay, but I had to find a better documentary where it's just really his music and shit. It's showing that shit way a little too fruitcake for me to let them continue to watch that shit. And then Kubri says, I just hate to see people that equate blacknesses with growing up in a war zone or in poverty. Yeah, it's just the ignorant side of people and shit. People love to push off their experiences and thinking that this is what you should have went through. And that's like, I'm glad I'm not like that. I'm not a person that pushed that. I also be having homies I'll be having to tell, because they be thinking where we come from was the hardest area to grow up in. Like, man, why y'all? What's the point of highlighting that shit? Like, we ain't come from no toughest area. Everybody experiences where we come from were just as fucked up. But they think that means like some school of hard knocks graduation type shit. It wasn't nothing cool about that shit. Because a lot of motherfuckers are fucked up and undiagnosed with the fucked up. I got homies who I grew up looking up to who every day they got it. Like how you see with Crip Mac drinking beer and shit. There's something behind that shit. And it's the trauma that these fools face with to cover to drown out their fears and shit. To settle their fucking nerves. They turn to this shit every day, all day. A lot of people, I'm glad I live with a sober mind, but a lot of people can't. They got to have some substance. The drug use is to mask and drown out their fucking fears, their traumas and shit. And it's undiagnosed. And it ain't just the hood thing, because a lot of people like to paint these fucked up depictions that everything within the black community is fucked up. These white folks go through that fucked up shit as well. As much privilege as they get, they're fucked up. And a lot of shit they try to do to marginalize other groups, you ain't doing nothing but fucking up your own. That's why you gotta bring equality, like balance out fucking equality throughout this country. That's why this nation constantly goes through its ups and downs, its constant instability and shit. But he says, since coming up hard is a measure of your blackness. And let me read that over. It says, I just hate to see people that equate blackness to growing up in a war zone or in poverty. It says, like, coming up hard is a measure of your blackness. It says, I seen rich kids get in real trouble. It says, acting hood. Absolutely. And he says, just to try to fit in with their peers or get girls. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I don't want my kids to think like to glorify they be on some hood shit, this and that, but to just properly teach them that shit. Like I said, I never want them to see none of the shit I seen as a kid. Because even though I think I'm more normalized, there's still effects of that shit from out there. Like I say, a lot of people like, oh, the military, this and that. No, LA shaped me for a lot of the ways that I am. The Army ain't do none of that shit. LA kept me to where I ain't get brainwashed by that Army shit. That's what LA did for me. LA kept me from letting that Army shit brainwash me. Them older cats I grew up listening to as a kid kept the Army from brainwashing me. And then Kenny Porter's right hand says, becoming desensitized doesn't make it right. Says, and in reality, says it can make things worse, especially without counseling therapy. That's a fact, bro. It's a fact. A lot of these kids, especially as they get older, they begin to kind of realize some of them don't grow. Because I see some of the older cats that still like institutionalized with a lot of this shit, still programmed by this lifestyle. And a lot of them, adapted to kind of outlaw lifestyles, what many people get caught up in. And they live by those rules. They don't adapt to regular society. And society has really forced that. Society has forced a lot of the hands of people, where people be so quick to want to judge people that are gang members, whether you're an SA, black gang member, white gang member, and they push all this other shit. Society has really pushed some people to where they don't feel like they fit in this judgmental ass society. The society that fucking restricts certain people with access to things. Everything ain't fair and balanced. And some people like, fuck that. Ain't nobody about to set no standards for me. I'm turning to the other side of life. And I'm going to go into this life to where I'm going to take it. Since I can't have it, I'm going to fucking take it. American society pushes a lot of that shit. And they begin to, you see in certain societies, certain areas, and certain systems, being schools, you watch them as they destroy young youth. They done that shit with us. And that's why I push on wanting to teach my kids true history through pride, but also understand history of what occurred, but to not have to where schools make you, because when they start teaching that slave shit was the most damaging thing. Because let me let this shit cycle again. Give me a second. Let me see if it's gonna hold. Let me see. Okay, I see my signal going back up. All right, but yeah, let me go back to that slave shit. The damage with that slave shit is that, man, when we were getting taught this shit, and many of the parents that wouldn't come out to the school to see what kids are being learned or this and that, it was like, man, these motherfuckers was teaching that slave shit. Is you nothing but the white man? It was always the white man this. And then you begin to see the black person put in chains, picking cotton, being whipped. And slowly you're starting to break these motherfucking kids down, where these kids have no pride in wanting to be black. And then when they teach this war shit, it's just all foul, wrong ass ways of teaching shit. But when it comes to teaching shit about the revolutionaries of slave time period, a lot of shit wasn't taught. And then the shit people discovered in the book, they did hide these other motherfucking revolutionary people who stood on shit, but they whitewashed us with shit of white empowerment in black schools. Like, what the fuck? The fuck kind of shit is this? White empowerment in whites and black fucking schools to teach you ain't nothing more than a fucking slave, cotton picking, in chains, off the African boat ass motherfucker. And I begin to see where a lot of kids in the schools just didn't give a fuck about who they were and shit and what they are, because everything they see around them, because of conditions that have been set. When this drug shit start to hit, because we young kids, we don't see it, and the people they fed this shit were young kids to get out here and start to distribute this shit. It began to fuck things up. And it's like, that's why you must stay on top of teaching shit. To teach pride is not to teach it in the form of hate neither, because it's one thing you can turn into teaching a person to be proud of himself. You can also teach that in a way to where you begin to teach them to hate everyone else. And I don't do that shit with my kids. When I teach them pride, because even with me, with my pride, I don't hate nobody. I'm not racist at all. A lot of people think that shit. If I had to say some offensive shit to racist people who say racist shit about black folks, because they really spewing out racist shit, then they start crying when they hear me say some shit. And then Lost Art of Boxing says banging the Little Rock says a cool doc too. Yeah, no, I'm showing my kids all this shit, showing them all this shit. And then also because they know where my brother at. They see this, I tell them the story with my brother, where he at in life and what occurred with him, many of my friends who are no longer here, and just a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit, and that's like, man, sometimes I just sit back to myself. That's why I enjoy my time to myself, because I reflect back on life, and I just sit back and reflect on a lot of this shit. And it's just some way out fucking shit. Like, why? And then you go back and you look at all this shit and you line all this shit up, especially the time periods of the 60s. coming up out of that fucking war and the transition in society, really coming out of World War II from everything that wasn't given to blacks. As society begins to do this rapid expansion and shit, the one people left out of this shit who participate just like these white cats in this war, the effects of what they did with black folks and the limit their access to all this new shit being built, the expansion of these damn cities across this country, and blacks are left inside of places with no fucking resource or access to shit. And then it's constantly there. That's why you gotta stand firm on addressing shit. And if Velasquez says Ross did damage, says on the west, says Fat Cat Nichols and Preem says did the damage in the east, says shaking my head. But they did, but a lot of these cats, when you look at just to put the damage that they done, you must look at what they come from, because you look at what these guys coming from and you get some old rich, slick ass orange deal trading motherfucker and narcotic pushing motherfucker that pushing into kids who go through situations to where shit, they mother and them can barely put food on the table. Winter comes around, they can barely heat the fucking house without bills stacking. We look how inflation is. Imagine those time periods being inflated for a person born in poverty. Mother's working 3 jobs, she ain't there while our kids living in this wild ass environment. Why? Because we get a system that don't want to pay people shit, that don't want to pay people fair wages. So this loving mother that wants to provide for her children, and possibly because the father ain't there, she's having to work 3 jobs. You had a lot of time. Not everybody was a fucked up parent. You had to where this society that these Reagans and Bush motherfuckers set up for society, motherfuckers already pulled from their graves and put on a firing line and blasted through their fucking skeletons because they're pieces of shit. Or I hope if there is a heaven and hell that they suffering down there. But you get to where these, like the fat cats, the Rosses, they're byproducts of fucking America. These cats come from where the mothers can't feed them, and the kids have wants and demands. They realizing they poor, they fucked up. They looking at their clothes, they look like shit. People talking about them. And it's crazy how much poor people talk about one another. We look at even with these chicks we try to fuck with. Poor bitches have so many demands on what a motherfucker look like, where you need to take them and shit. And it's just part of the psychology that gets fucked up when people are moving through a struggle. That here these Reagan type motherfuckers find an opportunity to push this shit. These people don't have nothing, but then we're going to criminalize these motherfuckers at the end of it. After all this shit implodes and blow up, we're going to start criminalizing these motherfuckers that we gave this shit to. But you get the fat cats, Rosses, and Ross tell the story. He didn't have shit. He didn't know where he was going to go after high school. Matter of fact, he was illiterate. A lot of these cats are illiterate. It goes back to where I said, watch with the kids with Nas dropping out the 8th grade. These schools weren't teaching them shit. I've seen that shit when I moved to fucking Chicago and was going to Evanston Township. And I found out shit. In Chicago, you go there, Chicago is a city that you recognize the segregation there. It's there in LA too. But Chicago, that shit is so fucking blatant. And the way in which that fucking county distributes wealth, the distribution of resources and shit was there. So I'll go into Evanston Township. When I go to Evanston Township, is one of the most prolific fucking high schools in America and shit. And seeing the resources the school was given, even versus LA, to this date, I ain't never seen a school that matches this motherfucking school. But then you drive across Chicago and you begin to see these other schools. These other schools look real fucked up. They look like penitentiaries and shit. And they're usually in the black areas, because you can tell when you're in the black area, we're in whatever European group that the white areas are in, whether Italian, the Sicilian, Irish, Polish, and all this other shit. You see a difference in the way their neighborhoods look and this and that, because it's deep racial structuring to their systems out in that motherfucker. But when I went to that school, those other kids who were growing up in this area, they weren't dealing with none of this shit. They weren't having the drugs flood into their communities like that. But right a few blocks over, Drugs flooding all through that shit. Who knows? Probably cops bringing that shit over there, and then they'll criminalize the shit, get these cats off the streets. But you're dealing with the Rosses, Fat Cats, Supreme, and all of them who just didn't have no opportunities and shit. Parents with no opportunities. Mother and father's probably working 3 and 4 jobs. Can't get a raise, don't get a promotion. The white guy at the job who don't do shit, sit on his fat ass, can be late, don't do shit, kisses up the boss's ass, and is promoted every time there's an opportunity for a raise to happen. This shit is fucked up with what we have endured and shit. It ain't just people not trying hard. I think we try extremely hard, but at some point, people gonna give up and say, fuck this shit. And especially a young kid, like, and these drugs are that profitable? Like, shit, what do you think a kid gonna stop? You listen to how much these cats is talking about they were making. Even when you listen to scandalous ass Alpo and when AZ and them tell the stories, or the money these young kids making at like 15 and shit. You keeping the lights on in the house, putting money in mom's pocket. That make you feel proud. You don't realize the damage you're doing for your community, but them politician motherfucking Reagans and shit, they know what they doing. And then Cool Breeze says, I remember, says a lot of West Coast brothers came to Atlanta for college, says the Cali Club, says on the Atlanta University Center, says it was legendary, says it was great to meet guys with different experiences and viewpoints. Oh, I thought he was talking about back in the 80s. You had a lot of LA cats in the 80s setting up shop all across this country and shit. And then Lost Art of Boxing says, my best friend says he's says my best friend says he's little, my brother from the Hoover 7-4 and shit. Oh, he got his brothers from 7-4 Hoover. Yeah, that 7-4 is a little bit down from, but like I said, I used to be all in these areas because either mom's in them, or family be living over there. I forget what Hoover said my cousin Deuce Time moved to. I remember we supposed to fight the kids over there because they used to try to fuck with my cousin and shit. And we like ready to fight them, but then we in our mind like, damn, these fools. In my mind said, you know, I never was gang banging like that, but I'm like, these fools enemy neighborhood to where I grew up at and shit. And then Cool Breeze says we as black men says are so diverse, says but the media paints us so monolithic, and that's why people got to start changing the narratives. Like, I'm big on controlling the narrative, but I don't believe in bullshit, fake ass, dumb shit narratives neither. Because there's some black people push stupid ass narratives, but to also debunk bullshit that whites put out there that they don't know shit about. Because one thing's about whites, especially media whites. Y'all don't know nothing about this fucking country. And as much as they try to segregate this country and shit, whites are so limited in this fucking country. Yeah, blacks talking about we don't go camping and out to the wilderness. Whites don't explore shit neither. Them wilderness living motherfuckers don't even go to the city. But we need to catch up and go right there. Blacks move anywhere in this nation that we want to. And we're not afraid. We don't run away from motherfuckers like that. We end up moving to areas where we fucking 1% because we live in this fucking nation. This is our nation. It takes rule and policy for these motherfuckers to attempt to pull bullshit with us. Whites don't experience America. They may think they do, but they don't. These motherfuckers so lost with this shit. And then Lost Art of Boxing says you must be older, says like in your 40s, Cool Breeze. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, Cool Breeze, I think probably is in his mid 40s or something. And he says, I rock with you. Says, a long way, Red. Says, you're a real one. Man, appreciate that, my brother. And he says, white people's suicide rate is crazy. Absolutely, bro. When I went to the Army, dude, I think all the crazy, like, weak shit you see from motherfuckers was coming from white soldiers. White kid, I remember white kid, this even fight even get into a unit. White kid cutting his finger. I didn't see black kids doing shit to try to get out of this shit. Seeing white dude put his finger in a fucking fan blade and chop his shit off. White dude go get medication, can't handle the shit. Go off to fake a sickness, get prescribed pills. Motherfucker try to overdose on a whole bottle of pills and shit, pumping his stomach. I think that shit happened 3 times in my basic training. What's the other shit? We had a motherfucker play crazy, threatening, we on the shooting range and shit. And I remember a drill sergeant say, one of the drill sergeants told me to watch this motherfucker in case you need to shoot him and shit. Watch this motherfucker. And I'm in basic. We doing the fucking M16 shit. Then that same motherfucker, when we get to Fort Hood, that same motherfucker was acting crazy on the gun range and shit. when you get to our regular unit, he get up there and tell, because they had, that's when that don't tell shit would get you kicked out if you came out. This hold on, let me let this signal. I see it going short. Because like I'm glad you brought that shit up with the suicide shit. Let me see. Am I still there? I think I'm still good. Okay, I think I'm good. All right, so there go my signal. But that's even another thing. When I get the Fort Hood start having a high fucking suicide rate. They start having meetings with the generals on Fort Hood and shit back in 2000. They before September 11. All these suicide attempts, actual suicide. They had one when I was in there where this dude blew his brains. Also like a 2-day. This is like a 2-day motherfucking hostage situation in the barracks at 4-5D. If anybody was at Fort Hood in the 2000s, you remember this shit because it was on the radio and all that shit. What was popping on Fort Hood? They had the motherfucking soldier in the 4-5D barricade himself with a bitch he was with, threatening himself, wouldn't let her out the room. They doing all this negotiating shit. It ended up getting that fucking commander. Who was the commander? The commander was, when I was there, I think it was General Abrams. I think he the son of one of them he the grandson of one of them famous ass World War II fucking generals and shit. Matter of fact, we were on Abrams tanks, and I think he the fucking grandson of that General Abrams. He was the base commander of Fort Hood. He went down, and this motherfucker who was doing this hostage shit blew his brains out in front of these motherfuckers. Then you start having other suicides. You start having all these fights in the clubs on this motherfucker. It was many of the motherfucking suicides coming from white soldiers. A lot of the AWOLs was mixed, but yeah, a lot of white soldiers doing this shit. But suicide shit, when I was in, I don't remember no black person threatened to commit suicide. The only weird shit I remember from a black dude in my unit was the one black dude who was a fucking tranny. He was our drag queen, wherever they was. Now he was a tranny. I remember I got in trouble because I was I would throw a ball at this motherfucker, call him all this derogatory shit towards gays and shit. And he told on me, and they come up to telling me I can get kicked out for harassment and shit because we was tripping off this shit, man. That shit was some way out shit. Where these fools, because we always thought something was wrong with this dude, and then people be trying to defend him. Nah, he just feminine, like little short. I forgot this fool name. And then it's like, nah, he ain't like that, man, because he been and got kicked out if he was gay. And he was like, people be trying to do this. He just want a feminine cat. What's the difference, man? Feminine person probably gay and shit. But one day we out there barbecuing this shit, and we right on the side of our barracks where they had little grills and fucking little field area. We throwing a football and shit. So this dude always hung with like another black dude, and he's hanging with another Asian dude. So one day we out there, we see this fool and the other black dude walking up with a girl and shit, and motherfucker long hair and all this shit. We like, what the fuck? Like, and we like, hell no. Everybody's like, man, look at this fool's about to go in there and take this bitch down and shit. We thinking this shit, man, it was the Asian dude they had, but we don't know until they come back out. They go in this motherfucker in the dress, hair and all this shit, eyelashes and shit, nails. And then so these motherfuckers come out sometime later. We just like what the fuck? This fool about to get him a chick type shit. No, the dude name was Joseph. So I know my homeboy Smitty be on here, and Smitty know I'm talking about Smitty on here. The dude, the homo dude in my unit name was Joseph. I don't know his last name, but the motherfucker, they leave and shit. And somebody like, man, that ain't no fucking girl, man. That's that dude dressed as a girl. I'll take the football. You fruit, man, saying all this derogatory shit, throwing a ball at him and shit. You old bitch ass motherfucker. Grab a rock, tossing at him and shit. The fool go tell on me. Cause I get in a lot of trouble too back in the army. So the fool go tell on me. One of the sergeants had to pull me to the side, like, cause this is where shit start to come down the line about harassment and not, judging people based on that shit. Cause this how be even before Obama coming, where people talking about Obama giving these gay rights and shit. Before this shit, before September 11 popped off, we get Canadians come to our unit. They bring a Canadian tanker unit to train in my unit and shit. They're down there for like a month or some shit. Cause we were supposed to go do the same shit in Korea. the following year, we supposed to go to Korea and train with the South Korean armor unit and shit. We're gonna spend months over there. And that shit fucked up because September 11 happened. But before this shit, the Canadians come down there. The Canadian Army was open with that shit. So they was telling us, like, briefing us on not making statements, especially as telling me not to say no shit. If you see these guys, because they be holding hands and shit. The Canadians was open with that gay shit. They even had girls on tanks. In the American Army, females don't work in combat units. They had girls in their army unit up in Canada. But you'll see the dudes with the same last names and shit because they were married, I guess. And they walk around holding hands in a motor pool. Like, what the fuck? But the white cats was cool, like, hang with them because they all to the bars and shit. And they they was respecting because they talking about the Canadians can drink and all that shit. But that was a shock. And then that's like when I heard the shit when they coming out with the changing the rules on that shit, I knew that shit was coming down because what they were doing when I was in the army back then and shit. And then Lost Art says, you good? Oh, that's what the signal was fucking up earlier. But my signal keeps crashing like every 15 minutes. So either kind of go stuttered up, but it comes right back. King Porter's right hand says, I'm a big believer, says, in how early experiences and interactions during childhood lay the foundation for various aspects of adult personality. Facts, bro. Facts. And I'm big on breaking certain behavior I see with my kids. I break that fucking shit. And he says cognitive abilities and moral reasoning. Absolutely. That's why that childhood development shit, I'm a firm believer in that shit. And I'm also a person that has to learn, had to learn fast track with that shit because our parents didn't get this shit. I think a lot of because I don't think there was much education in the understanding of the adolescent brain, like the young brain. Let me give it some seconds. Let me give it time. Let me see. It's gonna come back. Yeah, as far as the development of the childhood brain, and certain benchmarks you want kids to hit, certain things you're teaching them, and just overall of when the brain begins to stop development, when are the prime times to teach it. In this era and what they're developing, because the study of kids is so crucial. And I think it's a failure of parents when you get young, especially young parents. That's where that teen pregnancy, that's what was also fucked up with the 80s as well. That was so fucked up with the 80s as well. That teen well, I ain't gonna even say that shit. That's what they highlight in the news. Teen pregnancy has always been a thing. I'll take that shit back. That was a highlight of shit they try to put in on during our time period in the 80s. And a lot of grandparents were teen parents as well. They didn't have an understanding of the brain development of kids and shit. But I think in this current age, we have a better understanding of shit with society as far as what we should be teaching, the development of children, development of these mental health disorders. And I think a lot of mental health challenges are here because the development of a lot of people are in adulthood and especially in teenage years hasn't been properly developed. I think the chemicals are imbalanced in the brain because of the lack of proper development of that shit. Kenny Porter's right hand says the importance of providing a nurturing and supportive environment during childhood, says as it greatly influences an individual's well-being and functioning as they grow into adulthood. That's some real shit, bro. That's some real shit. Because King Porter always joking and shit, but this is a very serious comment from him. He says, I'm a big believer in early experiences and interactions during childhood. Says lay the foundation for various aspects of adulthood, of adult personality, cognitive abilities, and moral reasoning. The importance of providing a nurturing and supportive environment during childhood as it greatly influences an individual's well-being and functioning as they grow into adulthood. And that's why I can give my kid's mom credit for a lot of that shit as well. Even with doing the co-parent shit, like she been great with a lot of that development shit. She the person that paid attention to that shit. But other things I be thinking she lacking, to be having to cuss her out because I don't agree with a lot of other shit, but been great at that shit. The experiences she provide for them. But I think a lot of women provide certain experiences where they take kids is great. But on the other things, I think are my fucking great strength is shit, especially when it comes to the education part. our development and preparation part. And the Lost Art of Boxing says that's why I brought up. That's why I brought up the Great Migration. Says every city affected by the migration. Says you can see the systematic racism from things like projects and corruption. St. Louis, Detroit, Chi-Town, Baltimore, Cleveland. And the crazy part with projects, the projects weren't a racially segregated thing. I think the projects deal with the boom in population and also with lower income, because whites lived in projects. And that's the crazy thing, because people try to treat it like blacks just lived in projects. The projects were a place where mixed groups of people lived in them. But what started to happen as you start getting other opportunities of where this, kind of the cities begin to expand out, suburban development, all that shit. You start dealing with, and you had black folks who could afford to live outside the projects and all that shit. But that redlining shit, more of that racial shit, that redlining shit, it didn't provide opportunities for black folks to move into these areas, or they'll try to do this thing that is illegal now. That's part of, like, when you get into the Civil Rights Act, a lot of things think that Civil Rights Act just meant this and that. There's a lot of shit that goes in the Civil Rights Bill and shit, to where they start kind of making it illegal for doing shit with real estate people, to swaying people to move over the area. Oh, we don't have homes for sale over there, but we have a nice plot over here. And you begin to see them stacking black folks up all in one community, going into lesser served areas, lesser access to grocery stores, further access to highway. Even, well, the highway's kind of moving in on us and shit, but you start having that shit. But the projects were a thing where all races of people lived in there. But when you start having that, but like you brought up, the mass migration coming into cities, blacks moving into project areas, because ain't no red tape on moving into that shit, because they start moving the white residents of the projects up out of there. As more blacks start to move in them projects, somehow, some way, the white residents of the projects begin to find their way into fucking homes and better areas and shit. And that's and that's why you get all these cities now. And it's funny to be talking about Evanston Township. Evanston's one of the first cities in this country that has started doing that reparations plan thing. And as well as, what is that, the Bay Area, somewhere up in Northern California and shit. There's a lot of shit owed to black people, man. Jashawn in the building, salute. And he says, salute to my brother Q, says salute. And Q says, the JB says, what's good, fam? Kenny Porter's right hand says, it's about time, says, to get a new router, says, or modem, my boy. That's what I think. I need to call it, but I'm barely here during the times when them cable motherfuckers open. I'm always at fucking work. And then but now I think you're right, because I think this ain't just the heat. I think it is about time to get a new modem. And I may have to call these motherfuckers to do it. And I can take off, but like I say, I go to work, so I ain't gotta. Those days I had been off of work, man, this fucking AC been running like a motherfucker. My bill about to be high as motherfucking lottery jackpot and shit. And Lost Art of Boxing says crazy shit. Salute, man. Aeon Jack in the building, salute, bro. Says salute to the chat and viewers. Says big up. Says what's up though? Salute. And then Lost Art of Boxing says don't ask. That shit. Some weak cats will get put out, man. They go in there and tell one of them damn officers they gay or some shit. But forget this motherfucker the fuck out of here, man. You had people in there, people going in there telling the commander they gay or some shit. They got thoughts of doing some gay shit, and they get put out for that shit. Yeah, the military wasn't playing with that shit. And then Jashawn says, what sport is your son into? None. None. Not now. I don't even be trying to push that shit on him. He don't be on. I be trying to make sure he know how to fight though. I gotta get his coordination up. He more into Robux and shit. Think he at that age, he's still in that Robux shit. And as long as he just smart, but I also want to make sure he know how to fight and shit. But I gotta teach him, because I think my son gonna be big. He gonna be tall as shit. He gonna be big, and he gonna have to learn how to fight. Refuse to have him be one of the big kids getting his ass whooped. And in due time in the bill, salute, bro. He says the effects of drugs in the 80s, says the black communities, is another claim for reparations for FBA. Not even just FBA. You ain't got to put all that FBA goofy shit on shit. They know who is who. They know who come from what. They know what communities we come from. You ain't gotta just be that FBA crazy shit. Y'all just caught up on this divisive ass shit. You gotta claim you a black fucking American. They don't give a fuck about a FBA, a GBA, a BBB, and a BOK, and all that other shit. Your history is your history. You're attached to this nation. All this other shit. Y'all listen to all these crazy people saying you gotta claim you are. They ain't going by none of that shit. Your history in this country is what will open you to however they set the rules on that shit. But black people definitely are owed a lot from this fucking nation, and that's what brings into where a lot of blacks can't stand immigrant groups and shit, especially older groups. They can't stand immigrant groups who come in here and then they try to give an opinion. Like you got a motherfucker like Ron DeSantis who comes from immigration. The Donald Trump comes from immigration. And then they have opinions on what blacks don't deserve. You motherfucking new arriving motherfuckers. And then Jashawn says Frisco the city you talking about. Oh, Frisco giving the reparations. So Frisco, and then you have Evanston, Illinois, that are the first to kind of I wouldn't call it a test run, but they're kind of ones piloting the program and shit. And they're providing, that's what they should. The black residents should get breaks on shit. Shouldn't have to pay for a lot of shit. And I like even what some schools are doing where you had those Harvard white and Asian students at Harvard try to get a change on, because there's a lot of things changing, especially within the Supreme Court, within this country, racially, the attacks on blacks racially through the political system. But you're also seeing a huge drastic change that you see in Israel, as they're pushing this change with stripping the power of the courts. That some shit like that's gonna happen over here, and that's why they worry about the spread of that shit. You're getting a lot of that nationalistic, divisive shit spreading over in other democracies, and you see what the Trump ideologues are trying to push that type of shit, trying to take control of this nation. Like that's why he belongs in prison and shit. A piece of shit pushing bullshit ass agendas in this nation. While retarded motherfuckers in this country talking about liberals this, liberal that, turning a blind eye to every fucking thing. When motherfuckers are clearing their face doing it. It's how they ship drugs in the fucking place. And then Jaquan says, yes, sir. Says you still got to do a new ETS, Evanston Township High School show. Man, it's crazy you bring that up. My next thing is I'm taking my kids up there. I'm gonna take them out there. I want to take my kids everywhere I come from. From the most I did last time, but they were so young, they probably don't remember that shit, is when they did come to LA with me, I took them from where my block is to show them the routes I used to take to go to school, even from elementary. Because even from me, and it's crazy, like when they were there, I got to leave a certain way off my block just to avoid somebody thinking like on gang banging shit and trying to shoot at my car if I can't leave straight off of Normandy and turn. It's the apartments over there. And they be shit like that, and I think I'm putting work. But the lead from my block, show them the way I used to walk to go to Woodcrest Elementary, showing the way, because Washington High School just around the corner from my house, showing the route I used to take to go to Henry Clay, take that long ass walk, then showing the way I used to go from Evanston Township, catch the bus. I don't even remember the way I caught the bus, but how I used to catch the bus up to Evanston Township. Then I remember the one day I walked, and it was funny one day because I spent my bus money and shit. And I was like, fuck that, I'm going to take this walk. Because I used to always remember the old people talking about how they used to take them old 3-mile walks to school every day and shit. And it was cold as fuck because it was snowing too. But I was like, fuck that. I was like, man, that's going to be my story for when I get old and have grandkids. I'm going to be able to tell them a story about how I walked 3 miles or some shit to school. So I ended up having to walk all the way from our crib, all the way from Evanston Township, all the way back to our crib. And I got home late as fuck, making that walk. I got there late as shit. And then Jashawn laughing out loud. I made sure I didn't spend my bus money after that walk. And then King Porter's right hand says, yeah, says I'm real passionate. Says when it comes to the subject. So this is around my career currently. Says 1 semester away from getting my bachelor's in physiology. I think I'm saying that right. I'm saying that shit, physiology. And then Jashawn says, as long as he's educated, says that's all that matters, definitely. Yeah, that's all that matters. Yeah, their education is more important than any of the sports shit. But I'm gonna definitely put them in the sports, and I gotta spend more time on teaching them that shit. I gotta get more out there. I gotta get my Fred Coomthorne on with the basketball shit. But the one thing, you don't got access like that, like where I was growing up, you don't got access like that. And they push all this funky ass AAU shit around everywhere. But we don't have like how we used to be able to go to Jesse Owens or these other like park clubs and shit. Even though they do got them, I gotta find out where they are. And I'm not with, even though they do that, not what do they call that, I-9 Sports or some shit. They do that shit. I think it's called I-9 Sports or 9i Sports or some shit they was involved in. And I see they got that kind of across in other states across this country and shit. I guess they have taken over youth sports activities and shit. But I think the coaching is halfway. They be like, a parent just show up and be like, can you coach this soccer game? Or like, the fuck kind of shit is that? Because I remember we did practices when I was growing up at Jesse Owens. This is what I'm saying. They done fucked a lot of this youth league shit up. A lot of it up, man. When we used to go to practice, man, we had practice Monday. Like, how many days we had it? It's been so long ago. It should have been down there 40, almost definitely more than 30-something years ago. Well, we go to practice every other so often throughout the week. The weekends we have our games and shit. Now it's like that I-9 Sports shit is just like you show up the day of the game, they do a little practice, and then they play a game. Like, what kind of shit is that? That was foreign as fuck to me. Like, we went to practices through the week and then had our game. That shit at Jesse Owens, when a homie dad ran the youth program at Jesse Owens, it was nothing like that shit. Man, Jesse Owens was off the hook. All of LA was dope. But then you start having these politicians fucking over these youth programs. They start fucking these youth programs up, man. And then Charmaine says, salute, Charmaine. Kitty Porter's right hand says, my wife and I also bring our children with us. Says when we go to do community service in South Dallas. Says to teach them about giving back. Says and also have them talk to some of the people and hear their stories. Like, man, my kids have like I need to start doing that, man. They have such compassion in their heart, and especially as they see like homeless people out there on the side of roads and shit. They always want me to provide them with something. But also give them stories into what leads people into you know, this happening in their life, like, because that's one of the most that's kind of one of the most saddest situations to see anybody be inside of a country that's supposed to have so much and shit, but also leading them and telling them the ills of drugs, mental health, and a lot of shit that really pushes people out there to have to live in the streets. And Vegas is one of the harshest. Vegas is one of the most harshest places to be homeless in. Vegas is definitely one of even all that shit. Any of these hot ass desert areas, is Vegas, that Phoenix shit. But Vegas is definitely one of the harshest places to be homeless in. There ain't really no resources for people to get anything. Vegas is horrible with resources. It's hot as fuck during the summer. Then you deal with where you hear the story. I don't know if people watch the thing about the homelessness out here in Vegas and how you get people that live under the flood systems out here, the flood channels. They develop communities under the flood channels and shit. And sometimes if a flash flood come through this mug, you hear a number of them get dragged out, swept away and shit. You got a lot of them live up under the freeway underpasses. They're building, there's like homes set up underneath freeway overpass. You ever drive down the freeway out here? Just look over in the cut under the bottom part of the freeway. You see people with shit up under there. And some of them open little manholes and they climb in. They be living in that shit. And especially in the flood drains, they live in them. Somebody did a documentary going under there on YouTube. Got a great documentary on the Vegas homeless. And he goes into venturing into some of their homeless areas and shit. Jaquan says, let me know. Says, you out here, bro. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that, Jaquan. I ain't forgot to let you know. Says, definitely want to link up in person. Says, dinner lunch on me. Or says, it meant on me. Says, that's my stomping grounds. Laugh out loud. Man, I be telling people, man, there ain't no place like that fucking Evanston Township, man. That's why I still talk about that shit. I was looking up a study on Evanston Township earlier today. Like that high school just intrigues me. It trips me out that you look at, and like you say, education is everything. It can it can change everything for you economically. Education's everything. But I was going back to like looking at how a lot of us back from when we come from these communities to where they have been destroyed, to where a kid cannot look up, a kid cannot see out in the future, a kid don't know anything that's out there. The world, a greater world is foreign to them. That shit is some alien concept. Like, them people don't think that they have opportunity or chances to do anything and shit. But going to Evanston Township and seeing that shit, for me leaving from LA schools, and the first day I stepped on the Evanston Township, because we don't got schools designed like that shit neither. Man, I was blown the fuck away. You go into this school, they got that front part, you get all this history, because that school is old as fuck. This school built like in Evanston Township, what's the history? I think that shit built in like 1870 or some shit. Oh, let me pull up a quick fact check on that shit. Because when I went in there, you get all them old ass pictures, like these old slave time motherfuckers that they dressed in pilgrim uniforms. What, Evanston? Let me pull up the history of this school. This school old as fuck. Wait, where's the year of this school? This school was built in, because the front part got some of that shit. 1883. So the oldest school in the state. It's the oldest school in Illinois, or one of the oldest schools in Illinois. This shit started in 1883. And I remember going in there, you see all them old ass pictures. You don't see no black, a black photo in that motherfucking till. I think when you had like one black person, I don't think you see a black person at Evanston Township graduating photos until like shit, maybe the 60s or some shit. So that school started in 1883. So maybe a decade and a half after slavery ends, you get this school developing. And but yeah, I want to go there. Since walk was long. Yeah, man, that was the crazy part about that school, man. I used to always apologize to my teachers and shit, be like, because I couldn't find out where my classes was. Well, hold on, my signal. Yeah, I couldn't find out, man, that school, because like I said, they said that, matter of fact, Evanston Township is the largest school under one roof in America. It's the biggest school in America under one roof, because all that shit is linked in this building. Man, I couldn't find, I would be late, and I think they excused you for like a week or two, like you're okay to be late, because the motherfuckers realize how big that school is. Man, I couldn't, and then it's like 5 stories and shit. Man, that shit look like, man, I'm like, what the fuck? That shit remind me, I was playing that Hogwarts game. You know that if y'all ever played that Hogwarts, whatever that little wizard game and shit, and they walking through the little wizardry school. That's how Evanston Township look, man. That shit just a humongous motherfucking school, but it was just like they had so much there, man. That motherfucking school, that school can self-sustain itself, man. It can sustain the community. They got pools in this mug, Olympic pools. They do Olympic diving. They had hockey in that shit, gymnastics, indoor wrestling, indoor track, football practice facility, three or four practice football fields, a stadium across the fucking street, a main gymnasium. They got about fucking 10 other little basketball courts, gymnastics in that motherfucker. They did TV broadcasting and that shit. They ran their media for the fucking area. What else these fools had? Fucking, they had one of the biggest libraries in fucking high school, big ass auditorium, planetarium. They teach you about space and shit. And I mean, they do so much. And then I think they teach construction at this shit now. Man, them kids had everything. But you go outside to them south side, west side communities, and the schools don't look nothing like that, man. Them schools don't look shit like that. And then I seen the craziest shit because when we came back from there, I ended up going to high school in Cerritos, which is a cool high school for California, real good high school in California. That shit don't fuck with Evanston Township at all. Then I go back to Washington High School. We go back to the block. And I remember being at school, because you always hear them stories about black schools always receiving the hand-me-down books from white schools. One day I get volunteered for a shit in summer school. I have to go to summer school. I get volunteered for a detail and shit. Man, we go in this detail because in LA you get the little bungalow classroom. So there ain't no big ass building like how Evanston Township was. You into one period, you walk into one end of the school in bungalow. I remember they start bringing the bungalows on the school campus and shit. You walk into the different bungalows and shit. So they had one of these little trailers that they were gonna turn into a classroom when they attach them, but they just trailers and shit. We go in there, man, this trailer filled with books, man, from the bottom of the floor all the way down there going up to the ceiling. And we thinking like these books they about to throw away. That's what we thinking. No, these books they getting ready to distribute to the fucking, for when the regular school year start. These fucking books are used. And even the black lady who was running this detail we on, she's like, you see what they think of us, right? And because we looking at, that's why I think the books about to throwing away. We open the books, they got writing in them. They got, you know how you get the stamp inside the book of what school it come from? These schools from like Bellflower, Artesia, some other shit. Like, wow. How the fuck we, this in when I went to school, this in 97, 98, 99 or some shit, wherever, because those years I was at Washington. And I was tripping, like, because I always hear them old stories from the older black cats talking about how the black schools always got the hand-me-down books from white schools. Here I'm at Washington in this year on a detail, and we getting the hand-me-down books. Not one book we got out of this room was a book coming out of plastic. All this shit was old fucking books. All that shit tripped me the fuck out. When I went to Evanston Township in my 9th grade year to start school, I tripped out when the teacher, when we start math, I start math, 9th grade math, whatever it is, these fools give out scientific calculators. School over with, I'm giving it back to the teacher. She like, no, this yours. I'm like, what? Like, this, what you mean this mine? It's like, what the fuck? Every student get a locker room. These motherfuckers, when I went to Henry Clay, the locker rooms punched in, your shit rusted out, your fucking combination shit don't work. You got 20 years worth of fucking gang riding inside your locker. Some people prying open lockers and shit. You didn't keep shit in your locker. Evanston Township, them motherfucking lockers were pristine, cleaned in the motherfucker. Everything worked. If something broke, you need to fix the motherfuckers, handle it. The hallway floors waxed in a motherfucker. Like, this school was beautiful. You go to black school, man, you don't see none of that shit. Even to, I've been out of high school for then at 30 years, and I still be tripping off this Evanston Township shit. Still be tripping off of this shit. Then how long I've been out of high school? I've been out of high school, damn, about 26 years, that is, 25, shit. I've been in high school for a long time. I still be tripping off that Evanston Township shit. And the Jashawn says, I play AAU, says for free, says start them early, says when you good, says when you're good enough, says you will get on team for free. Yeah, no, I'm gonna start working with them, but now I ain't working with all this fucking heat, but I'm definitely had to start working with them most definitely. Kenny Porter's right hand says that that was a typo, says I meant what is that? Psychology. Says so my associates was for substance abuse counseling. No, you in a good program and shit. And then Deuce Time says Kenny Porter right hand says coming with all that education shit. Yeah, we used to hearing him in here clowning Fred when we going in. He on his serious shit. That's how I be too. Like I say, motherfuckers well versed in shit. When you got education, you cover wide array of shit. He says bachelor, says this says bachelor's this, master's that, says trying to front on folks. Says homie, I graduated from the school of hard knocks. Deuce Time, you went to school too, niggas. And then the King Porter's right hand says shit. Deuce Time says I did too. Says I didn't go back to school until my 30s. Says I'm 36 now. Says never too late. Absolute, bro. And Deuce Time says laugh out loud. Says I was just joking. Says around homie. Yeah, Deuce Time got a degree too. And he says, I admire any person's higher education. Says, I know it takes dedication. Absolutely. That's commitment like a mug. Jason says that's only if he got real interest, says in the sports. Says you don't want to force him. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm never gonna be a parent that forces that shit. Because I've watched parents ruin a kid's passion for a sport. I've seen many homies who were, even with Pop Warner, and it was crazy. I was watching what's the dudes who do the ultimate highlights? They do the youth, they do high school and youth. Wait, let me see. Is that the name of that YouTube channel? Ultimate highlights. And there was a video they put up the other day. Wait, what's the people do to pop the youth football thing? They were like, damn, what's the shit? The kids always be repeating that shit. And what's the name of this channel, man? They do the youth, high school and youth. Hold on. It's a channel on here, high school and youth football. Hold on, I'm gonna find out. Let me see. Somebody gonna write in here. Youth football. Hold on. What's the name of this channel? I think that was called Ultimate. No, here it is. Oh, it's called Ultra Highlights. These people. Let me go. This channel right here. This is the channel that does the high school. They got great dope ass content. They do all the Pop Warner, top high school football and shit on this channel. But they had a video the other day where they're showing these idiotic parents up there fighting and shit. They show these idiotic parents out there fighting and shit during one of these kid games and shit like that. But I've seen parents that do that kind of shit that really kind of, you know, destroy a child's passion within the sports that they're playing and shit. I think it was their channel that was showing that them parents out there on the field fighting and shit. Then you have what is that? What's the football player from the used to play with the Broncos? His brother shot somebody. I think Brandon Washington was talking about he was at that game when that kid, Akeem, what's the name? Akeem Salim. They got the Muslim names, but you know you deal with that kind of shit. Our parents that act a fool and just push people away from that shit. But yeah, I wouldn't dare force that on my kid. Even though I'd be loud, I know when they was playing that basketball shit, I'd be in there loud as shit. I don't know if that was embarrassing to them, but I'd just be passionate, but not starting shit. But I'd be clapping for all the kids out there. I'd just be into it, trying to hype the kids up. Talib, yeah. What's his name? Akeem Talib or whatever his name is. That stupid motherfucker. Big Dog Willie says, remember when Fred Hawthorne says if he became mayor of Los Angeles, says the crime level will decrease down to 0%, says because he knows every Crip and Blood leader in Southern California. Yeah, right. Fred said that shit. He fucking lying because there ain't no real Blood or Crip leader in that shit. You get influential elder Blood and Crips who don't have real control of that. A lot of people, these young motherfuckers are gone, man. The only thing that's gonna fix the Blood and Crips situation is mom and dad fixing that shit in their household. That's the only thing gonna fix it. Ain't no big homie gonna fix that shit. Ain't no threat of police, law enforcement gonna fix that shit. It's mom and dad. But also mom and dad needs to be given a fair opportunity to be able to have money for themselves rather than the system taking everything they earn out of the household where they can't afford shit. Like I say, even in the hood, you get where parents work so fucking hard and are barely skimming to get fucking by on some good times ass shit. Hardworking fucking parents having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to fucking get by because everything costs so fucking much. Jobs refuse to pay them what they're supposed to pay them and shit. You got to fucking down there fucking hold a damn job by their feet and shake the change out them pockets just to give you a fucking raise and shit. Why everything's shooting up. And that's the biggest talk about everything in all sectors. So why I'm glad these Hollywood motherfuckers are on strike, because you deal to where motherfuckers don't want to pay you what you work. And it ain't even just a thing people saying go work for yourself, because people start their own businesses and do the same things corporations do. They don't want to pay people. That's why I ain't into none of that start my own business shit, because I'm really a this. Like I say, I'm different than 99.9% of people. If I can't start a business and pay people right, then I don't want no company. Plus, it takes a lot of work to work a company anyway. I don't want to pay people just to say I'm paying them over minimum wage. If I'm a company making a lot of money, I want to be able to pay people to where they earn a lot. You ain't got to worry about them just being thieves, because I don't want to fire people like that. Like, and you may have to do if you're dealing with a person that just don't appreciate shit, but to be able to pay people. These jobs don't want to pay people. And then you get a parent who work all these hours dealing with people in public, dealing with co-workers, dealing with fucking management, and then go home just for a little bit. It be parents who really do this shit, who work hard, and they're spending less time at home with their kids. So much of people's lives are dedicated to a fucking company who at some point don't give a fuck about you, and they look over fucking numbers and see slow down here, lower sales, lower revenue, and they got to start laying people off and shit. You done gave your all, working 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table. Like that's bullshit. But like I say, the changes to society is going to come from the households. But America does so much to fuck up the family dynamic. America fucks a lot of shit up. But the people who gets the blame is the one you see in the act of shit. But what's leading to the act? A lot of people overlook that shit. A lot of people. And I was looking at about the history of LA Skid Row, which comes from UCLA. It comes from UCLA something. They got a channel on it. And it's like a 14-year-old video she put up, but it deals with the history of LA Skid Row. And the guy who's doing it is a white professor, but he brings up the racial component to Skid Row. He brings up that shit and all this redlining things that factor into it. And a lot of this shit, the more history really gets taught and it ain't whitewashed and it's American history, it's always a component of racial obstacles put in place for fucking blacks to uplift people coming over, migrating from Europe and all that other shit to find upward mobility in this shit. And for black folks to have to hurdle over every fucking thing. And we some hurdling motherfuckers because we keep climbing up and they try to rewrite the rules and you get bigot after bigot that gets into the position of his pen striking the paper. And then Pittsburgh T says Reagan top 3 worst presidents ever. Yeah, he filled 1, 2, and 3 of that shit by himself. He definitely 1, 2, and 3 the worst. I wish if I was president, I'll put a executive order to dig his ass up out that dirt and tie his ass to a post and blast him. He need to be executed. And Pittsburgh T says worse. Says Reagan worse says as long as I've been alive, man. Yeah, Reagan ain't shit. And the people who be defending Reagan, as far as them Republicans, them bunch of racist ass pieces of shit, bunch of foreign bred fucking Ellis Island boat jumping motherfuckers. Kenny Porter's right hand says Deuce Time says yes, it's hard. Says I work, says it's hard. I work, says and have 5 kids, says I'm burnt out from school. Says next time I go, says back, says after I finish this bachelor's, I will be says sorry for this bachelor's, says will be for aviation. Says I want to learn how to fly small planes as a hobby. Yeah, man, that was always my dream and shit. And that dream is deferred. Hopefully I push my kids to it. And then Deuce Time says somebody blocked. No, man, you always talking about Willie, man. Y'all niggas look like brothers and shit. And the Deuce Time says Talib talking about, yeah, I was talking about that football player that what you call it. Y'all don't talk alike, but you niggas look alike. And then Jashawn says, he says, yep, my homie says was on that channel. Says one in the NFL and the other plays in the Pac-12, says the SEC. Wait, which channel? Was on which channel, bro? Which channel, Jashawn? And then Kenny Porter's right hand says Talib Brothers says you were talking about that. Are you talking about that high school football and the Pop Warner channel? I was talking about that ultra highlights. And he says and then Kenny Porter's right hand says Talib Brothers just pleaded guilty, he says, and got 37 years. Oh, good. Man, he deserved that shit. Man, you know, I was watching today. It popped up on my shit. I ain't never heard it. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of shit. I ain't know fucking was out there. Lorenzen Wright shit. I didn't know there was a video. What's the name? What's the basketball player got killed by his little funky ass fucking bitch? His name was Lorenzen Wright. Man, I didn't know. That shit fucked me up, man. Listening to that shit, I didn't know, man. That shit, I'm gonna bring tears in my eyes talking about this shit. That there was video of Lorenzen Wright on the fucking phone as them motherfuckers killed him. That shit hurt my motherfucking feelings, man. That shit kind of hurt my feelings talking about this shit because I hate scandalous ass fucking people, man. I hate scandalous people with a fucking passion, man. That shit hurt my heart. I did not know that. All these years, I never knew that shit. And then the bitch cousin told on her because he wasn't getting the money he thought. Like, man, my people are fucking scam. That's why I don't like I love people and shit, but it's certain people I just don't like, motherfuckers, especially money hungry people. If people don't know, I hate money hungry motherfuckers with a passion because I don't trust them. I don't trust money hungry people. Man, like I say, man, come on, homie. I lose my fucking freedom dealing with money hungry people because I fuck around and had to kill you because I don't trust you. I don't like money hungry shit. Don't talk money with me. Don't be about money around me. Just let shit be organic. Yeah, money will flow, but don't talk money shit. I don't trust you. All money hungry people are scandalous niggas. They alpo ass motherfuckers to me. But to watch that dude, that bitch plotted on that shit on that dude like that. But I seen that because they talking about the one dude who got life for that shit. He talking about he didn't do this shit. So I'm watching the news story they put on. He lying like a motherfucker in this shit. But how did bitch only get 30-something years? And the hurt that I heard his mom, man, it was his mom that I was listening to talk on that shit. And listening to the mom, she's still hurt with that shit. That was her kid, man. But the listen, they up there popping. He on 911 as he running, I guess. Guess he was running from him. And they both gunning him down. That shit was fucked up. You hear him saying, like screaming or some shit, saying, damn, like, and bah. And even with the homegirl, I hear with my the homegirl I was telling you got killed by the dude from High Five, the brother, not the singer in the group High Five, but remember he had a brother that did that to his wife, which is the girl I told y'all used to like me from out there in Waco, named Stevani. So I had heard this story, but I heard the video. I didn't know her son had called 911 when this dude in the room tripping on her, and you hear her in there screaming and shit. Not that he in there stabbing or some shit. And you hear her little son on the phone with 911 and she's screaming, and this motherfucker taking her life. That motherfuckers is foul as fuck, man. Motherfuckers ain't shit, bro. But I'm glad his fool 37 years, man. People who do that kind of shit need life in prison, man. Motherfuckers ain't shit. But that little isn't right shit. Fuck me. I did not know that shit had a 911 call on that shit. That shit was foul as fuck. Because what they found, I remember when he disappeared and shit. I remember when he went I never knew that call. That shit is scandalous as fuck. Then find out his old tramp ass bitch did that shit. That shit fucked up, man. And then her family knowing that shit, members in her family telling they overheard that. That shit foul as fuck. People ain't shit. Deuce Time said should have got the electric chair. Yeah, talking about Talib, Talib brother. Yeah, they should have. That Lorenzen Wright motherfucker should have got it too. The bitch. And then that's the thing I don't like it with DAs, man. They giving plea deals. This bitch getting 30 years. How the fuck this bitch get an opportunity to get free again? This bitch get to go walk free again. How the fuck you giving a plea deal? This bitch, man, and they got kids and shit. Man, motherfuckers ain't shit. Pittsburgh T says union busting with the airline, says the NAFTA agreement. No, Reagan, wait, what's that? Reagan fucked up a lot of that airline shit. It was beyond the NAFTA. NAFTA didn't fuck that shit up. That was Reagan who bust the unions up during them strikes. Remember, he broke up he caused that shit, which is a thing that changed the airline. It made the airline industry better. No, it fucked it up too. But he was busting unions apart, especially with the air traffic. Remember, he fired all the air traffic controllers back in the 80s. Think he brought about that deregulation shit in the airlines. He did that deregulation airlines, so he started getting a lot of cheaper airlines involved in aviation and shit. And he was doing a lot of that union busting shit. That outsourcing shit kind of expanded with him, but it started happening in the 70s as well. It says the NAFTA agreement. The NAFTA was under that Clinton shit. I think Clinton was the NAFTA shit. And he says war on drugs campaign, bitch ass Reagan. And it says Glass-Steagall says breaking up for banking. It says Reagan was absolutely trash. Reagan's a fucking bitch, man. And I'm glad he fucking died a horrible death too. I'm glad Reagan ended up having a fucking suffering fucking life because they hide that shit. There's been a lot of these presidents who died horrible fucking deaths. Look at God blessing us. Reagan died fucked up. Nigga fell off a horse, hit his head on the ground, ended up fucked up, didn't know who he was, and he suffered. Even during this drug pushing shit in this country, Reagan daughter, one of the biggest dope fiends in this motherfucker. getting slutted out by the type of dudes he don't like. She sucked so much black pecker and got fucked by it. Oh, I know that shit killed Reagan and Nancy. Yeah, and that's the shit they leave out, Ray. His daughter, he pushing drugs in the country. His daughter, a fucking dope fiend and shit. And they love to hide that shit. I love bringing it up. That's why I love talking that Civil War shit too. Your Reagan daughter, big time dope fiend. Motherfucking what they call the black? Ain't a term on the porn shit. The girls were getting slut out. His daughter was a fucking Adam 22 wife, the Lena the plug bitch. What she was. Yeah, I'm glad that shit. God's karma hit Reagan like a motherfucker. Motherfucker Danner got his ass assassinated. Nigga fell off a horse, brain scrambled, and he died like a bitch. Same thing with Lyndon Johnson, raised his ass. Lyndon Johnson, he died a fucked up death too. Little racist bitch. A lot of them motherfuckers died fucked up deaths. Roosevelt, all of them pieces of shit. And the Velocity Cut says Kimball Hawthorne once said he wanted to put all LA gangbangers on an island and blow the island up. Yeah, Fred just an ignorant motherfucker. You don't realize he is black. He got gang members in his family and shit. And it's just people just give a bad rap to gangbanger, man. You gotta look at what create the dynamic. Like I said, I got a brother fucking gang member. I don't hate him. I look at the dynamic. What created that shit? We live in an environment that creates this shit that comes from other motherfuckers interfering, presidents interfering with the ill shit, governors interfering, creating these dynamics to fuck up only specific areas. And sometimes even when they attempt to tamper with certain areas, they infect their own goddamn community and their own households. That'd be the funny shit. And they try to hide it. But I love clowning Reagan, punk ass, dead bitch. And Velocity Cut says, Kimball Hawthorne. Oh, yeah, I read that one. And then Jashawn says, yeah, talking about that UTR highlights. Yeah, UTR got some great highlights. But they showed parents on there fighting the other day and shit. Deuce Time says, Lorenzo Wright says, that shit sucked. Says, set him up. Yeah, that was fucked. I did not know there was a fucking call. That shit was, like I said, that shit brought tears in my eyes talking about that shit. I did not know that dude suffered. And they heard that shit. They heard that shit being done. That shit's so fucked up, man. To try to take his money through life insurance. That's like that video I put the other day with the wife of that soldier who had an affair and then had him set up and killed. Man, you gotta watch motherfuckers. That's why I'm like, that's why I never wanted that marriage shit, because I never really want to be to where we don't dislike each other. We gotta live in the same house. Fuck that. Always like fucking with a chick who got her own shit. We can kick it. You can come over here. I'll go over where you at. The minute we don't want to fuck with each other, we can just move apart till we want to kick it again or some shit. And I'm cool with that. Like all that stress and I've never been a marriage motherfucker from childhood. I always been like, like I say, it ain't too much change with me from what I've always been. It's certain things I have to fucking correct and shit, but more than likely what I observed and learned lessons through life as a kid, I'm still the same motherfucker on what I stand on, believe. Yes, bitches I be wanting to be with and be loving and shit, the attraction with them, but I just don't want to, have your own shit. That's why I push for chicks to get your own shit, be out here grinding, be out here working and all that. Because at some point, you get that shack and shit. And like I'm at the point to where we don't know each other like that. I don't want to bump you at a club or you done been through a bunch of heartbreaks and you just looking to settle with any dude you think is just the one. Not fuck all that shit. Hey, kick it, have a cool conversation. Let's laugh. Let's Netflix and chill. All right, I'm leaving. I'm going back to my spot. Or I got my kids, and my kids are priority to me too. My kids want. All right, there he goes back. And then, I almost got to get on here because I got some food in that oven too. And then Jaquan said, and then I need to rest because that fight coming on. Don't forget that fight coming. I'm going to be waking up for that damn fight call too. Jaquan says, yeah, bro. Says that shit was crazy. And he says, yeah, it's just like 10 seconds before that bitch set him up. That shit was fucked up, Lorenzo Wright's story. Damn, man, I did not know that shit happened to him like that. That funky bitch is going to get out, man. And the mom is so hurt. I couldn't imagine that shit, man. I'll be in court trying to sneak a pistol into that motherfucker, man. Fuck that. I can't imagine when people, and I don't know if y'all watch Law and Crime where they got these court cases and they be murder cases. And as a parent, you going to the court and having to look at the motherfucker that may have done your child fucked up. Man, people, that's why I don't rock with that. Man, people got to stop killing people for nothing ass shit. Cause you high and shit, cause you poor and shit. And you always dealing with motherfuckers that be plotting and shit. I'm always hip, because that's why I said I be trying to read forward. I read through motherfuckers and be watching when niggas trying to plot and set motherfuckers up. I was watching a video early where they talking about where they jumped on this one kid. That's why I like posting. I wish YouTube let me post more of the shit I post on Facebook and Instagram and shit. Because I don't post the shit to glorify, but I post the shit to point out certain shit. There's a video I seen, I don't know where I seen on Instagram or where I saw this shit. But it's where these kids, like the one kid, he up there think he hanging with his homies, not knowing they plotting on him. Because it's claims that he's snitching. One dude just dope fiend in front of Blindside. Bow, drop him, and the rest of them jumping on him and shit, stomping him and shit. Like, that's some people do some whole ass shit. But whoever plot on that motherfucker, that kid got every right to come back and lay all the motherfuckers out. Dude like that one dude fucked up everything for Death Row. What's the dude Mike, what's the dude from Death Row that was killing everybody? And they try to set him up, the dude with the ponytail, whatever his name is. And then Jaquan says close people will set you up. Facts, man. He says that shit was terrible. Says he was says he's a real ninja, says to that community. Says we lost all those real people, says trying to make change, in their communities. Facts, man. And people be like, it'd be the white people doing, I'd be people around you doing that shit out of their jealousy and shit. They say to change a lot of shit, the household got to change with a lot of motherfuckers. Oh man, that shit was fucked up too. Vlaska says facts, like Sweetie Pie's owner's son. And when I didn't like that show, and the reason I didn't like that show, like I say, I get vibes off people. I never liked that dude on that show. I know he had a criminal record and none of that shit. I didn't like that dude. There was something about that dude, man. And he says, since that dumbass is doing license for putting a hit on his for his own fam for insurance money. That shit was fucked up. That shit was fucked up. Some people just scandalous motherfuckers, man. That's why I don't like money hungry people at all, man. And hopefully people understand that with me. Make your money. I don't want to hear how you made it or what scheme you got or how to make it or donate this to you or support you through that. No, my support ain't coming through none of that shit. And the Deuce Time says they always take it easy on the women. Yeah, that shit was bullshit. That woman get to walk away. She set that shit up. And they get that was just a trash ass DA to do that shit. DAs, even DAs who give anybody plea deals because they snitch and shit. Kenny Porter's right hand says it's only around like 11,000 to about 20,000 to get a private pilot's license. I just want to fly small planes like Cessnas and as a hobby. Yeah, well, I was trying to go into the airlines and shit, but like I said, my timing, like I said, I'd be laughing about all that shit. Them two, I got interesting stories in life that I just laugh about. That recession shit, Bush's fucked up policies and shit. Bush's policies fucked up a lot of shit for me. And then that recession shit rolled in around. And matter of fact, I kind of should have, if I had more, because a lot of my family didn't understand, a lot of shit I was doing wasn't shit that comes up out of our community. Like I said, I've always been a different dude and shit. So my pursuits weren't pursuits where I had all the knowledge and where to position myself. And by the time I was going into them, everything in this country, the bottom fell out of everything. And then Kenny Porter's right hand says, rumors was Nancy Reagan was known for her head game since before marrying Ronald Reagan. I believe her. She a Hollywood hoe too. And Hollywood bitches be blowing like a motherfucker. Trust me, I know. Them chicks be trying to get in Hollywood be, that's why them bitches lying on Bill Cosby and all that shit. This time says, what's going on with the Crips on the internet? Says now S-Bone is a snitch. That's why I be like, what I was saying a while ago, cuzzo, people pushing all this person snitching. All that snitching shit don't matter with shit because motherfuckers just be lying on people to try to ruin a person's reputation as a say he snitch. We got this paper. Where the fuck y'all get all these paperwork? These fools just clowns on this shit. And half of them dudes who be trying to push that shit ain't even real gang members and shit. This time says the Crips are gonna be disbanded. Says no one is gonna want to be one. Says like 5 years. Says watch. Not just really these internet cats, man, doing that stupid shit. A lot of these dudes messing up their reputations with through that shit, engaging in that. And then they think they gotta prove themselves. Duton says the Crips are like the skinheads, almost obsolete. You just saying that shit because you on that blood shit. Yeah, George Williams was that dude from Death Row that was, they try to do him wrong and they find that he was a true to life fucking killer and shit. And Deuce Time says G says just got out, says a nigga's been quiet on him, says he's out. Yeah, he a certified fucking killer. He then killed all the Death Row and shit. And then Toby Bartlett says salute my brother Toby Bartlett says to the chat. Lights cuts in there rolling. But folks, that's all I got. I hear this timer going off. Wait. Boy, can't be on that. Hold on, let me get a signal back. Hold on, come on, signal. Oh, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna unplug that modem for a minute. Cool boy can't be running that excuse making shit. All that shit about the glove shit, he better clear that shit out of his mind, because this motherfucking gloves tonight, this fool NUA gloves tonight is gonna be going to your jaw. So all that hand wrap and glove shit is out the window. You better protect your jaw, your motherfucking chin, and all that other shit that'll get you knocked out. And get your shit together, because this little motherfucker coming at you, man. He gonna be all dude kicking your motherfucking ass with his fist. But that's all I got, folks. I'll catch you guys. Peace.